doesn't get any cleaner than this. We'll tell you why this week on Motoring 2000.
TSN's Motoring 2000 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
You know, in any given year on Motoring, the chances are you're going to see product from most of the North American car manufacturers. Now, obviously, giants like Ford and General Motors have an edge, but you know, even comparatively small companies like Honda will pop up on the program more than a few times, and for good reason. I mean, here's a company that began the year by launching the S2000 that possesses the most powerful, normally aspirated engine in the world. And now they've gone 360 degrees and become the first company to sell the cleanest vehicle in the history of the gasoline engine. While the S2000 boasts the most horsepower per liter in the world, the Honda Insight's hybrid system uses the world's most fuel-efficient 1-liter gasoline engine, which is coupled with an electric motor allowing the all-aluminum Insight to travel in excess of 1,100 kilometers on a single 40-liter tank of gas.
Well, it's been several years in the making, obviously, and we're really thrilled that it's finally here, because we've been hearing about it for so long, and we expect it to create a lot of interest in the marketplace, because it's going to be the first of its kind to go on sale in Canada. And we think people will be really impressed with its drivability, performance, and obviously the reasons why we're bringing it to market is fuel economy and environmental concerns. So it's exciting for all of us.
When you start the car, it's a gasoline engine that has been downsized for fuel efficiency, but the problem with a smaller engine is you lose performance. By adding an electric motor to assist with acceleration, we make the motor and engine combination feel much bigger without consuming more gasoline. And when you are decelerating, you're recharging the batteries. So it's a very elegant solution to a tough problem of reducing fuel consumption. At low RPM, the electric motor will give an additional 50% torque or power to the performance of the vehicle, so it feels like it's got a lot more power. And when you're cruising, you don't use the electric motor or the batteries, and when you're decelerating, you recharge them.
The car surpasses, as I mentioned, all federal standards relative to crash testing, and it has all your typical safety options. So it's not only a very fuel-efficient and good-looking vehicle, but it's obviously a very safe one as well.
And the great thing for consumers is it drives like a Honda. It has all the feel and fun and performance that you expect in a Honda. You don't have to sacrifice to get a really green car.
This package is kind of interesting. The combination of the electric motor and the VTEC of the gasoline engine makes for a pretty potent performer. I was kind of surprised by the performance of the car.
Sexy enough to sell?
I think so. Fender skirts are back. God, you know, that I can remember one of my first cars was great big old fender skirts, you know. So we'll see. It's reminds me very much of the old CRX, which I kind of liked, and I think it's a cool looking car.
They're in the business of selling cars, of making money. Will people buy this car? Cars like this?
I don't know if people are going to buy this. When you look at it, it's $26,000. It's a two-seater, and there's not that much space inside. So from a practical standpoint, You can buy, for $26,000, you can buy a roomier, faster, more practical car. So you really have to be committed, I guess, to getting, the best mileage possible, or to, wanting to be really green in terms of saving the planet.
It is a great technology, and by bringing it to market first, we will be able to get more experience than our competitors, get a jump on them. And when they're coming out with their first car, we'll be on our second or third car. We hope some people will be parking their SUVs for the week, save it for their weekend family outings, and maybe commute to work in this car. It'd be a great improvement.
Hybrids, electric and fuel technology. Where have I heard that before? Oh, sorry, my train of thought got derailed. My insight into Honda's new vehicle coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
Too short. Too far.
It's
Too short.
in spite. The Nissan Sentra has always been a pretty good little car, but for some unknown reason, it's been all but anonymous in the marketplace. Well, that's probably because it was a little too conservative for its own good. But Nissan plan on changing all of that with this new 2001 model. At last, Nissan has instilled some style into the Sentra's design. While mimicking the Maxima and overall look, the more rounded contours add the missing flair. The new body is also 25% stiffer torsionally than the previous car. This gives the suspension a better base of operations and limits the noise fed back to the occupants. The suspension uses McPherson struts up front and Nissan's rear multi-link beam. Stabilizer bars are incorporated both front and rear. The multi-link beam design improves Sentra's predictability, using a larger section lateral link to improve performance. In the pylon test, the Sentra belied its entry-level roots, whipping through the course in fine fashion. The base 14-inch tyres supply plenty of grip, and the engine's speed-sensitive rack and pinion steering fast turn-ins. For those looking for better performance, however, opt for the upgraded 16-inch tyres. When so equipped, Sentra takes on a much sportier persona. Sentra is offered with a choice of two engines. The base and GXE models use a totally new 1.8-litre twin cam that produces 126 horses and 129 pounds-feet of torque, both numbers up significantly from last year. This new 1.8-litre engine is very clean, as in it meets all of the super low emission vehicle standards. Now, Nissan accomplished this using a number of different techniques: variable valve timing, rethinking the exhaust manifold, and adding a special swirl control valve that makes sure that the air-fuel mixture gets thoroughly mixed during the warm-up period. It all adds up to one very clean engine, one that will be offered in all 10 provinces. The top-of-the-line SE model gets a 2-litre twin cam that bumps the output to 145 horsepower and 136 pounds-feet of torque. Again, this is the engine of choice if you want something sporty. Both motors are matched with a 5-speed manual box that delivers short throws, a defined gate and a light progressive clutch. A 4-speed slush-o-matic is offered, but is not the preferred choice if you're looking to make the most out of the engines. Not only did Nissan rethink the exterior lines, they rethought the interior. It's all very logically laid out, with the radio being placed above the climate controls. You also find a lot more room, both back and front, but that's really not what impresses. What does impress is the fact that you feel as though you're sitting in a far more expensive car. It's all been very tastefully done. Stopping power comes from a front disc rear drum design that's easily modulated. The up-level SE gets discs all round to handle that extra power. In spite of all the improvements Nissan have made to this new Sentra, they still persist in making anti-lock brakes an option, one they don't even bother to offer on the base model. Now that, to my mind, is a mistake that needs to be rectified, and fairly soon.
On the safety front, the Sentra brings dual airbags and 3-point seatbelts in all positions. The front seatbelts benefiting from pre-tensioners and forced load limiters.
You know, if you're in the market for an affordable four-door sedan, you could do a lot worse than the 2001 Sentra. Nissan have added better looks, more power, and more interior room. In short, I don't think it's going to be quite as anonymous as the car it replaces.
Time to update our long-term Hyundai Accent. Although the Ford Focus and Toyota Echo have been receiving all the headlines this year, the Accent is a car not to overlook. This second generation has been redesigned from stem to stern. Comes in a 4-door sedan and our 3-door hatchback test vehicle. Both models are longer and wider than previous years. You can choose between a 4-speed automatic and a 5-speed manual. Both are married to a 1.5-liter single overhead cam 12-valve 4-banger. Our test car is equipped with the manual, which would be my choice to help achieve maximum performance from the 92 horses and 97 pound-feet of torque. One of the nice things about the Accent is, unlike other manufacturers, the trunk actually has a latch. Inside, a handy privacy cover and an enormous trunk for a car this size that can get even larger if you fold the back seats down.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns brake pedal feel. The feel of that brake pedal when you apply the brakes can quite often tell you a lot about the system's performance. Here's a couple of quick checks you can make in the safety of your driveway or parking lot to determine if your brake system could be better through service or adjustment. First of all, with the engine turned off, hit that brake pedal 3 or 4 times to exhaust the power brake booster. Then lay off the pedal, wait a couple of seconds, and hit that brake pedal hard. Observe the travel on the brake pedal. If there's a whole lot of travel used up before you get a firm, hard brake pedal, that could be an indication that your brake system's out of adjustment. Usually if the brake system's out of adjustment, it's a problem with the rear portion of the system. In any case, something to be checked out. Now lay off the pedal for a second and try it again. Hit the brake pedal hard 3 or 4 times in succession. If it gets better with each successive pump of the pedal, that's an indication that your rear brake system could be out of adjustment, or you could have some air in that system. Now if the brake pedal is consistently spongy or soft, that's a definite indication that you've got some air in the system that requires bleeding of the brakes. Also, if you hear noises out of any one wheel of the car, creaking or squeaking noises, that could be an indication of adjustment problems or wear and tear on that brake system. Also, if the brake pedal creeps to the floor as you maintain pressure, in other words, starts to fade away on you, that's an indication that you could have a fluid leak in the system, external fluid loss, or a bad master cylinder. Any of these things, though, are writing on the wall that you need to get that car in immediately for some professional brake service. That's your Midas tip of the week.
What this is the GMC Terradyne, and the name comes from of the earth and strong, and so we think we have a nice strong truck behind us. And what we've done here for GMC, since we specialize in trucks, is to sort of think out loud as to say, what would a truck be, being capable like we think a truck should be. And so we've started from the bottom and really made a really strong foundation for the truck with a big diesel and a 5-speed automatic transmission. And then we've done a lot for carrying people and cargo in the cab by moving it up and forward to give you all the room that you can expect to carry yourself and your family. Then also have done a lot with the capabilities of the cargo, where carrying enclosed cargo on the sides, as well as having the extendable tailgate to carry 8-foot loads fully enclosed in the truck, while all keeping it with a really maneuverable, garageable overall length. This one we really wanted to take a fresh look at the style, and Carl Zipfel, the designer, calls this industrial precision, and I think you might see it in the strong shapes that you have, the beveled corners that are on there, and the really precise volumes that are drawn in there. We think this is a really strong and bold look for a truck, and we think it's really suitable both around town, but also on a vocational use that also trucks do. It has the versatility to look good dressed up or also on the work site.
For GMC and I think for General Motors altogether, it's really a unique opportunity for us to create a new identity for GMC, and that was really our main mission up front. It's really to further separate GMC from Chevrolet truck and just overall in the competitive truck market. So this truck is really out to redefine what a pickup truck for the 21st century is.
You know, a really cool feature in this new Honda Insight is the idle stop feature. Now, in a normal car, I'd be sitting here at a stoplight with the car running, wasting gas and polluting the air, but not with the Insight. You simply move the gear shift into neutral, and the gasoline engine simply shuts off. When the light turns green and you're ready to move into first, the engine starts up and away you go. It makes so much sense. All right, now let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, here's the completely opposite end of the fuel mileage spectrum. This is an email from one of our viewers in Kelowna, BC, a fellow named Chuck Stewart. And here's his question. He says he has a Ford F-250 Super Cab, that's a pickup truck, with a 460 cubic inch engine. Now that's a 7.5 liter gas V8. He says he uses this exclusively to tow his 26-foot travel trailer, and he's getting very poor fuel mileage. He picked up a magazine recently and noticed an ad for a device called a high efficiency ignition system made by an aftermarket supplier, which claimed to increase the vehicle's power and fuel economy. He's asking me if I'm familiar with this aftermarket add-on and what's my opinion. Well, my opinion, Chuck, is that in all likelihood you've probably got an underlying problem with the basic tuning of that engine that needs to be addressed before you go any further. Do a full tune-up on that engine, spark plugs, compression test, complete ignition tune-up, make sure that you have the fuel injectors cleaned properly, professionally cleaned, and in all likelihood that'll significantly help your fuel mileage. You'll also want to look at all the engine sensors, oxygen sensors, and all the engine management devices to make sure that that engine is running at its maximum efficiency. Now, it's a pretty sophisticated engine package. It's very tight in many of those vehicles and hard to service. It's easy for things to go unnoticed. One particular sensor, for example, to be out of spec and cause that engine to use a lot of extra fuel. So look in that area first and address any problems there. I think in all likelihood you're going to pick your fuel mileage up right there, and my advice to you would be to stay away from those aftermarket accessories. I think you're wasting your money. Now we also need to make the point that a vehicle like this is never going to get great fuel mileage. It's a huge engine, 3/4 ton truck, which means an axle ratio typically tailored for towing a heavy trailer like this. It's not going to be a fuel miser at the best of times. All you can do is make the best of a bad situation. Another thing you might want to think about is possibly trading up your tow vehicle to something with a turbo diesel engine, because they're under the load conditions that you're operating under, a turbo diesel could conceivably get twice the fuel mileage of a gas engine in that same application. Now, it's different advice if it's a light-duty pickup or a light-duty van. I advise people to stay with a gas engine. It's just not worth the extra money going to diesel. But in this application, Chuck, I think you might want to think about that. It'd certainly be something you want to do down the road. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2000.
What? I can't get it into that. Okay, I'll show you a little trick. A teacher's a teacher. You know, the first few weeks I was here, they were asking, or when the new term would start, you know, are you a licensed mechanic? Are you really, miss? You know, you don't mind getting your hands dirty? That kind of question, but they've never asked anything other than that, because I'm still a teacher at the front of the class.
If you're big into cars, check out motoringtv.com. And while you're at it, download a copy of Autopilot. Autopilot software searches out the matches to your automotive interest and makes the most of your online time.
So now you know all about Honda's Insight with its new hybrid technology. Well, first of all, it's not that new. Every railway locomotive in the country is a hybrid. In those things, it's a diesel engine which charges a battery which powers electric motors. In the Honda, it's basically a gasoline engine with a little extra boost from an electric motor. Now, Honda claims it's the most fuel-efficient car in the world. Well, the fine print has to read gasoline car in the world, because there are diesels that will do just about as well. Honda claims a 3.3 liter per 100 kilometer Transport Canada highway rating. We actually got better than that. We got 2.5 liters on a rural stretch of highway. Now, that was lugging the poor motor uphill at about 50k in fifth gear, pounding the bearings out of that motor and shutting the engine off as we coasted downhill. Professional driver, do not attempt at home. Now, Honda accomplishes this with a number of technologies. It's not just a hybrid powertrain. It's a very lightweight car, all aluminum structure. There only are 2 seats, and you'd be surprised how much extra weight it requires to put reinforcements for rear seat belts. It's got very good aerodynamics, which is very important on highway driving. It's got the system that shuts the engine off at idle. Instead of sitting there idling at a stoplight, the motor waits until you're ready to go. Now, you don't need a hybrid to do that. Volkswagen did that with a diesel engine about 15 years ago. So my question is, how much of this fuel economy performance could they have accomplished with these other technologies in a regular motor? Well, one thing we know is that Honda did a Civic Special Edition a few years ago that got 77 miles per gallon with a conventional engine. That's pretty impressive. The other thing we have to concern ourselves with is the cost. This thing must be tremendously expensive to build. All that aluminum stuff in there, that hybrid electric thing with the batteries and all that stuff, it's built in the same factory as the NSX, and that's a $140,000 car. Now, Honda's only charging $26,000 for this thing. There's got to be another 40 or 50 grand in there somewhere that Honda is eating. I guess it's like everything else. If you want your fuel economy, you're going to have to pay for it. But I guess if Honda's paying for it, well, why not? I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, rightly or wrongly, a lot of people associate fuel-efficient vehicles with being simply cheap and possessing poor performance. Well, of course, Honda is hoping the Insight will change that. And you know, after logging close to 1,000 kilometers behind the wheel, I think they've accomplished it. First, it's fun to drive, it's peppy, and maybe more importantly, it's received lots of positive reaction from both old and young. But you know, there are still 2 questions that remain unanswered about the Insight. Can it pass Graham's rigorous test drive, which we'll have in just a couple of weeks? And 2, can the Insight endure a Canadian winter? We'll find the answer to that question when the Insight joins Motoring's long-term test fleet this fall. So lots to look forward to as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
I don't know that I'd describe it as love-hate. I think you'll have people that'll be very passionate about the vehicle and people that really won't understand it. It's time for us to take more risk.
I think my driving could be a little bit better than what I'm doing, but where I go is to my socials, my card games, and my shopping. But I stay in a certain area because I have no need to drive a car at any distance, so I find it quite all right just to maintain it for that reason.
TSN's Motoring 2000 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.